All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Gottschall. I am the Lower Paxton Township Manager. In typical fashion, for the benefit of those who may be watching at home on television, and as the board gets settled in this evening, I am going to give a brief summary of this evening's agenda. This evening is a workshop session of the board. They have a couple of items on the agenda to include. First, being taking action to accept a resignation of Robin Lindsay from the Board of Supervisors. Following that, the board will hear the second presentation of Ordinance 2025-01, which is the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance Amendment. Following that, then the board will hear a presentation of a staff request to hold the 2025 fireworks at George Park. And then finally, the board will hear any final announcements and make a motion to adjourn. With all that said, members of the board are seated and prepared to conduct business. Thank you very much.
All right, good evening. Welcome. Call to order tonight the meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors. This is a workshop meeting, as was mentioned. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor McCormick, could you lead us? Next up, public comment. This will be for comments not pertaining to the agenda. We have a few things on the agenda, so if you want to speak to those agenda items, you can just wait for them and you'll get your chance. Is there anybody with any public comments about something that's not on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Cheryl Thompson, and I live at 110 Memorial Drive. And I have a problem with, I need to pull it down? Oh, I thought I spoke loud enough. Okay. I have a problem with snow removal, or you coming out into the township, my development. This last icy incident, I don't know if anybody even came out and cleaned. We were blessed because one of our homeowner's son has a small business, and he came out and plowed. But there were quite a few places on Christiana Drive that were icy and slippery. And even though we get out and do our part, I don't think the township is doing a good job when it comes to our development. I know we don't pay a HOA, but we do pay taxes.
What day were you talking about, ma'am? Over here, I'm sorry.
Oh,
What day are you talking about?
When the last ice storm was.
The ice one.
Yes.
Okay.
And no one came. It turned out that one of our neighbors had son, as I said, has a service, a lawn service, and he came out and he actually cleared some of the icy patches.
Yeah. Let me ask, Brad, what do we do for ice? I don't know if anybody came down. Did we do the normal, we just salt, or do we do the actual plowing?
No plowing in that instance,
Okay.
right? So treatment, road treatment.
Excuse me, I don't mean
sorry.
to be rude,
No.
but I don't think anybody salted it, okay? Because it was just as if they felt because we were there that it would get done or somebody would do it. But I do have a problem with that. And I'm going to ask you, because the weather is getting inclement again, I'm going to ask you to look into that for me, please.
Absolutely. Ma'am, again, my apologies, I missed your beginning opening. What neighborhood is that? Amber Fields. Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, and I can give you my address, which is 110 Memorial Drive. Okay?
Thank
you.
Anybody else for something not on the agenda? Sir?
Eric Epstein. I'm a taxpayer at 4100 Hillsdale Road. I would also like to comment when the time comes concerning Robin Lindsay, but I wanted to use the opportunity to update you on the Central Dauphin School District and make sure everybody has accurate information. As you probably saw, we are going to be introducing full-day kindergarten in 2026. So we now have moved from 19 buildings to 23 buildings. To give you some perspective, we're the largest restaurant in Dauphin County. We traverse 2.3 million miles a year. So not only are we the 8th largest school district, but we're the only large school district that is also rural and suburban. And I can emphasize with the woman who spoke before me about bad weather. When we run late for a route, we normally hear very loudly and quickly from our constituents. Moving forward, some of the issues we hope to address. We have 6 elementary schools without air conditioning. We will be providing air conditioning in 2 elementary schools. We just floated a bond for $36 million to introduce full-day kindergarten. Our hope is, and so there's no mystery, we are probably at capacity, if not over, at Central Dauphin East, Lingelstown Middle School, and West Hanover. So we're hoping by introducing full-day kindergarten, we will increase the amount of room we have for other students. I know people see and they believe that the public schools are adequately funded, but just to give you an idea of what we're looking at next year is between 6 to 31 new teachers for autism support. 22% of our students have an IEP. So the world has changed and the challenges have changed for us as well. And I look forward to having a constructive and engaged discussion with Lower Paxton. We met with you, we met with West Hanover, and we also met with Swaderas. I'd like to keep that chain of communication open, but also with the knowledge that if you look at the number of students total, it's 14,200. 12.5 to 13 are at Central Dauphin. Unfortunately, a lot of the other kids are in placement. So this is a very complex undertaking. We now offer free and reduced breakfast and lunch at every school. So we transport the kids, we nourish the kids, we teach the kids. And this is my only political pronouncement. This year, and I am the chairman of finance, we'll be paying $18 million for charter schools. That's 7% of our budget. So if you have a problem, call me, 717-635-8615. Thanks for indulging me. This is my first time as a public speaker. Second. Yeah, Pam, I'm sorry.
Mr. Epstein,
Yeah.
what do you mean that 17% of your students are in placement?
No, 7% of our students are in charter schools. That's an 18.
I'm sorry, somebody coughed your answer out.
That was probably the most articulate thing I said. 7% of our 7% of our budget is for charter schools. There are about 1,100 students there. By contrast, we have about 475 at VOTech. But if you heard my speech yesterday, I tried to give people an idea of the financial hit that we're taking. And this is not a criticism of charter school, but it's a big amount. And that doesn't count. That's exclusive of transporting charter school students to brick and mortar. So I'm happy to discuss some of this stuff with you. Logistically, it has an impact, and obviously for us, it's important to know where the new housing starts are so we can plan and anticipate. And finally, we're still committed. We're one of the last school districts committed to having neighborhood elementary schools. We think it makes a difference, and we're also committed to small class size. At some point, it's going to cost money. So I'll leave it at that, but hopefully I can return later to address Robin Lindsay, the agenda. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think you answered the question. I think she was asking, out of the 14.2,
Right.
you said 12.5 or to 13 are CD.
Right.
The other-
12.4 probably. Yeah.
Okay, the other portion is trans.
No. So we have 475 VOTech. that folds into that number. 11 to 1,200 for cyber, because that changes monthly, right? And then placement, which is extremely expensive. We use Red Rock, Dauphin County Prison. I mean, you know, we have kids all over
Schaffner.
the place. But what I can do is I can email you our enrollment and show you where everybody's at. And I'll give you my card and I can send that to you as well if that's helpful. All right, was that responsive, Pamela?
Now it is, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else for public comment for something not on the agenda? Anybody?
Good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dr. Charles Stewart. I'm the CEO and the chairman of the board for Harrisburg Area Police Athletic League. We're an organization just moved into our community probably 8 months ago. What we do is we mentor kids through sports and education. If you want to know more than that, we have an online that you can go to online. I'm very, very sensitive about the kids, my kids that we support. To me, it's all about the kids. Well, to get to the point, we recently acquired property at 100 Elmwood Drive. That's the property right beside the bowling alley, the baseball field. And if you drive back down in that little road and drive back around there, you'll see our activity center, if you guys are familiar with that. Well, that place was abandoned for 6 years. 6. Electricity was cut off from the building. It wasn't maintained. Nobody even opened the doors. We went in there. The place was a mess. Rats falling from the ceiling and blah, blah, blah. We made a decision to try to figure out who owned the property. My wife and I, who was my administrative assistant, we had been working on this project for about 2 years. That means we came over here and talked to people, wrote people, and nobody had a clue. In my opinion, because I didn't get any answers, nobody had a clue that building was even there. I couldn't get an address on it. I couldn't find out who owned it. I couldn't find out who was monitoring it. Nothing. And if you're familiar with the location, there's a lot of illegal activity going on down there, or there was. There isn't any, with the help of Adam Kashiba, who was amazing, and his staff, his officers, we've cleared up that mess. And I can list the things that we stopped that were going on down in that area. The neighborhood appreciated us, welcomed us. We took over $100,000 and put in that property. Over $100,000 of our money. I didn't come here to ask anybody for a dime. Once we did that, and we wanted to make it a safe place for the community to come in and use. I get a letter telling me that the stormwater runoff bill for the past 6 years, while that was a mess down there and nobody paid any attention to it, was now going to be billed to me. There's something seriously wrong with that one. You know, as I have stated, and I've come here personally to state, because tonight's my youth night. We have basketball practice at E.H. Phillips with our elementary kids, and I'm upset I got to miss that. But I get a water runoff bill for 6 years expecting us to pay that when we weren't there. We've only been there since October. And I got a bill the other day for October to now, which we'll pay because we've been there. But I'm not paying, I'm not paying anybody else's bills. I want you to understand that. I'm not. If we have to go to court, we'll go to court. The thing that upset me more is that today we received a certified letter that this was sent. I know it's
Take a breath, please.
you got to find humor in it. We get a certified letter today telling us that was sent to a collection agency, some lawyer. I get a 3-page thing from the lawyer estimating cost of what it's going to cost us if I don't agree to pay. I mean, you're not going to bully me. That ain't going to happen. You're not going to threaten me. That ain't going to happen because I'm here today to tell you I'm not paying it. if we have to, then I'll countersuit some way or the other. But we came here to bring something great to our community, and we have. And we will continue to do so. I don't mind fighting battles, I'll fight battles. But again, we put over 100,000 in this property and we didn't ask you for anything. We have the community coming back over there. We're bringing baseball back, 7 baseball teams. We stopped the crime down in that area. We made it look more appealing to people. And like I said, safer. And I don't think it's fair. I just don't think it's fair at all.
Well, Dr. Stewart, I enjoyed meeting you and I enjoyed hearing about what you're doing. This is obviously the first we're hearing about it, so we'll look into it.
Okay.
Obviously, we don't direct these things, but we'll look into it.
That's all I can ask, is that you
Yes,
look
sir.
into it and let me know something soon so I can prepare for the attack.
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Phillips?
Yes, ma'am.
We want a time frame. The one thing I've noticed is you don't have a time frame. So ask them to get back to you within a 2-week period or a 3-week period. You need to have a response in writing in 2 or 3 weeks.
Dr. Stewart,
You can make a choice on that.
yeah, well,
Thank you.
do we have your contact information?
Yes, you do.
Okay,
All right.
yeah, we'll get back to you ASAP.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else, public comment not on the agenda?
I'm George Palmer, 6480 Liners Lane. I do have a comment about zoning, but should I wait for the zoning that you're going to talk about?
Is it part of the overall comprehensive?
Yes.
Yeah, you probably should.
All
yeah.
right, I'll come
Yes,
back
sir.
to that.
Yeah. Anybody else? All right.
William Miller, 4311 Crestview. Not with my esteemed colleague of 40 years in education. On the plowing, however, this last storm in the defense of the township was brutal. When you predict 2 to 4 inches of snow, you let the ice and the freezing rain lay on top, then you scrape it off. We froze out early. So then what do? How do you scrape off the ice? I like a salt cinder mix. I've used it forever. But in any event, it was a really tough one to predict because we go off the information we're given from the billions of dollars spent on all these systems. But on the sidewalks, I went around the township and I was really dismayed. I found that, none of the sheets did their sidewalks, all 4 around here. I went out to 743. Best Buy, sidewalks heaved, broken, and undone again. Not one property, except for one little lane at the one drugstore at the intersection of Devonshire and 22 was done. Down the Tire Mart, fast signs hasn't been done, and I can't figure out why the snow doesn't melt there. It did everywhere else. It's a phenomenon. Weiss didn't do theirs. Neither Giant did theirs. I don't know what's going on, and what are you going to do? Go out and write down every address? I've said this before. I think what we have to do is all of us drive around, and you have the authority when you look and you see and you make a note. People have a right to walk on a safe sidewalk. The one complaint I received is there at Devonshire where there's that little thing in front of Best Buy, like a little island where you cut over to safely get, where the turn lane is. It's not done. There's an individual who I tried to get to Home Depot by 5 o'clock. He rides a bike. He's had a bike. He'll always have a bike. And he can't go anywhere. And you can see the bike tracks. You can see the footprint. So again, in fighting for these sidewalks, but the ones we have aren't, the people, for some reason, it's epidemic that they're not maintaining it. Homeowners as well. And I think some kind of message has to go out to them. Literature, your email, on your website. I went down through St. Thomas again. Besides all those lights being out, those sidewalks were paid for. They're beautiful. And some people, especially on the north side that doesn't get light, they're not doing them again. And people are ambulating. As they mentioned, this township's huge. It's the 10th largest township, I believe they said, in the state. You've got 262 miles of roads. You've got tons of sidewalks. Every sidewalk's been mapped. And it seems lately that you can't get people outside to clean off the sidewalks. I spoke with Mr. Epstein. You know, I did see that the schools hadn't done theirs, and I was referred properly to the right people. I spoke with one of the individuals. It seems to be a contractual thing, so the best thing to do is I'll be going to that meeting. I don't know why they can't get their people out to do it, but there's a problem, and it needs to be fixed because the schools have to set the example. And I'm not downgrading the school. I mean, they're doing an excellent job of all they're doing. All this has to be done, but again, it does get down to the kids. All the schools, all the teachers, it all exists because there's students there, and they should be leading the example. And if they have to farm this out, and with the tax increase, why don't they just farm it out? One workman's comp problem with one person shoveling in the school district, you could pay for it for 5 or 10 years. So I think it should just be jobbed out. That's my thought. And then it's done. They have a horde of people. They have the equipment. They have the machines. And they get out there, and that's what they do, and they charge good money, but they get it done. But I'd like us to try to take a harder look at these sidewalks. I was really, really shocked by what I saw. And lots of people walk in this township, lots of people. So we're winning the fight on sidewalks. The new Church of Latter-day Saints building, sidewalks in front. We got to get continuance down to the diocese. There's a way to do that because people are walking up around that corner. We're going to get it done, but for now, having this type of snow, I just think that the lack of regard of businesses and homeowners for the kids, especially the ones again around North Side. Nothing was done at North Side. I mean, down from that one guy hasn't done his sidewalk. This is the 3rd year in a row, every single snow. So I'll give that to Mr. Garrett. I mean, I'm not that kind of guy, but on this one, I think he needs a letter or something, or a heads. Hey, just do your sidewalk. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Sorry. Nobody else? Okay. Board member comments.
So I will do my survey that I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. This is the February 11th survey. The question again is, how many people would be happy or okay to have a landfill compost site in their residential community? By a show of hands, please. Put them up nice and tall. Let me repeat the question. How many people would be happy to have a landfill or compost site in their residential community? Does everybody hear me? Okay. Go ahead and raise your hand if you're in favor of having a compost landfill facility in your residential community. Zero hands. Okay. I've been taking this survey for the last couple of weeks. And I've never been any takers. So my next comment addresses what's going on with our board. I am going to read my comments.
We're having a hard time.
I'm going to read my comments into the record, and then I will provide a copy to the secretary. Residents of Lower Paxton Township, employees and fellow board members, I've already said that. I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening and showing your interest and commitment to how well your local government works on your behalf. I sit here this evening as the only elected woman left on the Board of Supervisors. Until a week ago, I was one of 2 women that the voters in Lower Paxton Township trusted to tell the truth, spend their money wisely, tell them the truth and spend their money wisely, and put plans in place that will allow them to enjoy their community, their homes, their work, and their freedoms. I intend to keep the promises I made to the voters and the residents, starting with telling the truth and paying homage to our former chairwoman, Mrs. Robin Lindsay. For 16 years, Robin has given her heart in service to this community. For of those years, Robin served dutifully under the leadership Robin served dutifully under the leadership that had been in place. She was rightfully promoted to the chair of this body because of her integrity, her fairness, and her love of this community. Unfortunately, as with many governing bodies that have operated unchecked, good old boy networks for years on end, adjusting to and supporting the leadership of a woman met with resistance, whether passive or aggressive. Regretfully, this governing body has shown itself to be one of those resistant and obstructive forces, with our hired manager overstepping his boundaries and making blatant attempts to usurp the authority of elected members of this board. We have received multiple complaints and other issues of concern highlighted by residents, by voters, and by the employees of this township. The consistent theme of those communications include displeasure with the authoritarian style of the township manager, his non-responsiveness to resident-initiated communication, prioritizing his own self-importance, and inhibiting others' ability to communicate across silos in this township. His behavior has been not only excused, but condoned and endorsed by 2 elected male members of this board who themselves were part of the previous regime that chose to operate in the shadows instead of the sunshine. This is an at-will state as it regards employment. I say to my fellow elected members tonight, our lack of action to correct and redirect problematic behavior of our employed township manager has first cost us Norm Zumas and now Robin Lindsay. Through inaction, we have allowed 21 and a half years of township experience to walk out the door. We can no longer turn a blind eye. We cannot make excuses. We have the ability to right this ship, to put the sexism, ageism, nepotism, and bigotry of the past truly in the past, and to conduct the business of the residents of this township with honor, integrity, and full transparency. I implore this board of elected advocates to put the interest of the residents of this township above their personal relationship, their party affiliations, and their personal ambitions. I am looking forward to having honest and transparent dialogue when we adjourn into executive session this evening. I am letting it be known on the record that I will not tolerate any disrespect whatsoever to me as an African American woman. To Robin Lindsay, it was an honor to serve under your leadership for the past year. I am disappointed that I don't have more time to learn from your leadership. I and the residents of Lower Paxton Township are forever grateful. Pamela Thompson, Supervisor, Lower Paxton Township.
Any other board comments?
Mr. Chairman, I've been on the board for a relatively short period of time, having replaced Mr. Zumas. Robin Lindsay was very kind to me to help me get into this job. She helped me. So on a personal basis, I'm very pleased, very happy that she took the extra time to show me the ropes. I'm afraid, however, there were a number of accusations hurled at our manager, and I just want to say in the time that I've been here, I found it to be exceedingly professional and responsive to all my requests. The thing I really wanted to say before my colleagues' comments were, seeing all these people in this room is heartwarming. We are your representatives. When I was appointed to this board, I said, I now have 55,000 bosses, and I mean that sincerely. Only with your input, only with your participation, only with your voices being heard, will this group of people know how to represent you effectively. So I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause because your being here this evening is important to the effective management of this township. And I thank you for being here.
All right, then we can move down the agenda. Our first action item is to accept the resignation of Robin Lindsay from the Board of Supervisors. Is there any?
Do we have any public comment?
We do.
My name is Joe Lindsay. I live at 6244 Overview Lane, Lower Paxton Township. Does the board plan on reading the letter of resignation submitted to the board?
No.
Good, I'm going to. And the reason I'm going to is I don't want any rumors to be dispelled about Robin Lindsay, my wife. Because I echo the comments, and I want to thank Supervisor Thompson, because out of the 4 supervisors sitting here this evening, she's the only one that has responded after Robin sent her letter of resignation. The only one. After 16 years of public service to the residents, the employees and the first responders of Lower Paxton Township, I have decided it is in my best interest to resign from the Board of Supervisors. It is apparent the Board of Supervisors and the management of Lower Paxton Township does not have the best interest of the township residents, the employees, and the first responders of the township as their #1 priority. As a lifetime resident, I am thoroughly appalled at the lack of respect the Board of Supervisors and management of Lower Paxton Township has for the residents, the employees, and the first responders of Lower Paxton Township. I wish the residents, the employees, and the first responders the very best. They deserve much better. Robin Lindsay. I echo the sentiments of Supervisor Thompson. She spoke the truth. Robin was the most responsive supervisor we have had in Lower Paxton Township for a long time. You may not have agreed with what she came back with, but she was responsive. That is what was the biggest complaint when she first ran back in 2013, that the Board of Supervisors of Lower Paxton Township was non-responsive. And she made a pledge that she was going to change that, and she did. And she was always questioned by this board, how do you get this information? Yada, yada, yada. Well, that's because they didn't do what she did. She was responsive. And Mr. McCormick, I'm going to take a little bit of an opposite view from what you said here about the manager. Because I'm telling you the #1 reason, ladies and gentlemen, that my wife is tired of it and she's resigning. The verbal abuse of the manager in the presence of the Board of Supervisors, and none of her colleagues ever stood up for her. If he would have been in the private sector, he would have been fired for insubordination.
Well, let me say for the record,
Excuse me, I am not done, sir.
you said something that wasn't true.
Sir, I am not done. This is public comment, and I have a First Amendment right, and I'm being honest.
Go ahead.
Also, we have a toxic work environment in this building. The employees of this township are scared to death to do anything unless the manager tells them to do it. Furthermore, I don't even know why we're having an election for Board of Supervisor, because the manager and the assistant manager runs the township. That's exactly what's going on. We have a corrupt government and management in Lower Paxton Township, and I'm not the only one that has that opinion. It is sad. The people of Lower Paxton Township, the employees and first responders are losing the voice of the township by this resignation. And I'm going to give you a chance to see the supervisor that loves this township and loves every one of you one last time. And this is not staged. This is something that happened just 2 weeks ago. And then I'm finished.
Our recipient is a township representative to the Council of Governments, is a delegate to PSATs. And I could go on probably for another 5 minutes. It is an absolute honor to present the Perry Albert Award to Robin Lindsay.
Congratulations on you.
Just a second.
No, not here. I ask you all to pay attention to her acceptance of this award, what she says. This is a true supervisor.
Remember, I drove her to the meeting. During the pandemic.
Quite a surprise. That's why you didn't have this part of the script.
We knew it before you did.
Oh my gosh. Just thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Lifelong member of Lower Paxton Township for almost 68 years. I love the residents here. I love what I'm doing. I love being a part of the community. And I love working with the COG members. It's been a great 2 years as being the president. I've been coming to COG, it's 12 years, probably about 11 years. This is my 17th year in Lower Paxton government. I was there for 5 years. I served on the planning commission, and when there was an opening, decided to run, and have really enjoyed being a part of the Lower Paxton Township family and working for the residents. So thank you all again. I appreciate it. And with that said, I am going to introduce the best public safety director Lower Paxton Township has ever had. Adam Kashiba is our public safety director. I had a bio about this long, but he said that he will be introducing himself through the program tonight. So please, let's welcome Director Kashiba.
Ladies and gentlemen, now that is a true lover of the residents, the government, the employees, and the first responders of Lower Paxton Township. She received that award as she was the outgoing president of COG. By stepping down from this role as a supervisor, she must leave COG. She also loses a position on the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, of which she was on the executive committee, just getting to be elected to a second term in May at their annual conference. And I can tell you, everywhere she goes, everywhere, she does not promote herself. She promotes Lower Paxton Township. We are going to miss her. She is watching this on television. Can we stand up and give her a round of applause for her service? And I will make one request to the Board of Supervisors. Don't waste your time with a plaque. This was better than a plaque. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments for this item? Yes, ma'am.
I'm a Lower Paxton resident. I don't wish to relinquish my Fourth Amendment to express my First Amendment. But I saw this coming. I've been watching all the meetings, the disrespect. Ms. Thompson, you're a breath of fresh air to this board. Miss Lindsay has been the only one responsive to residents, and I mean the only one. I think you're the one that told me once I was getting in the weeds at one of the meetings, but yet when Mr. Epstein got up behind me, he wasn't in the weeds about a school district issue, but this lady was in the weeds. That, you know what, like that was kind of ridiculous. Mr. Gutschall, sitting over there smirking, you couldn't even stand up there. How smarmy are you? But let me tell you what, my first dealing with you,
Hold on, can I just say?
no, you can't say anything.
no.
I'm exercising my
subject
First
of the
Amendment
ma-
right. I
the
expect
handout-
you to stop.
No.
Stop now.
I'm saying
First Amendment, buddy.
Ma'am, your
the
first-
motion.
My first,
Ma'am, I am the
What?
township solicitor. Your First Amendment right has limits if you're disrupting a
time,
public
place,
meeting.
manner. Time, place, manner.
Ma'am, if you
Time is
disrupt
7
a
p.m.
public meeting, you will be removed from the meeting. That's how it works.
I'm
You have
asking, is she
5
Public
minutes.
comment. I was
Hold
called
on.
up for public comment.
comment on the topic, which is the resignation
Lindsay.
of Robin
That's
Lindsay.
right.
Yes. Don't be calling him names and all that.
Did I call him a name?
Smarmy and all that
His
stuff.
smarmy look that he had?
Make
Okay.
your point. I want to hear
Okay.
your point.
Okay, so here's my point. When the township sent out the trash bills and said, we're going to now charge you for us to bill you, I called the township up because we were already getting a sewer bill, and I knew you'd be adding some septic people on there. But I wanted to do some math and wanted to know what the township was making. So I call up and say, well, how many residential homes will you be billing and how many commercial homes? You know what the response from Mr. Gutschall was? You have to submit a right to know request. That's what I had to do. So you know what? I'll play your game. I submitted a right to know request. Do you remember what you did with that right to know request, Mr. Gutschall? You know why you don't remember? Because you didn't reply to it. That's why you don't remember. So I sent an email to the entire Board of Supervisors, and Miss Lindsay was the only one that replied and had to tell Mr. Gutschall to reply before I sued you through the Commonwealth for not replying to a right to know request. Number one, ridiculous that you couldn't just give me, a township resident, 2 numbers. But then when you did reply, you gave me a bunch of bullshit about hiring.
Please, ma'am.
I'm allowed to
please.
say bullshit.
Come on.
Hey, don't tell me.
Just make your point.
I don't care. I don't really give a shit what they do. See, the thing is, this board seems to forget the order. It's we the people, then the Board of Supervisors, and then the township manager. He seems to think he runs the show up there. And now we've just lost one of the best township managers. And that's why I'm up here speaking. Supervisors, I'm sorry, supervisor. I see Miss Thompson come in, and I see she's for the residents. You guys sit here and literally demean people. When the pool lady came in and asked for grant money, no. Oh, you're here every year asking for grant money. That's what they have to do to get the grant money. You have to come in and ask for it. I can't talk, I guess I have to leave. So there's another agenda item I can't speak on, but what you pulled with the fire company, I hope everybody else here is to speak about what you pulled with the fire company, and I'll be back. Because, look, you sit there so sarcastic. You couldn't even stand up for Miss Lindsay. 16 years. 16 years, and look at you. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Anybody else to talk about this topic?
With respect, Mr. Chairman, with respect, I have never demeaned anyone in this public meeting or private. So when you say everyone demeans people, please, I'm not that person.
I just want to say, I'm Cheryl Thompson, and once again, I just want you to realize I've only been coming for 8 months, and what I see really upsets me. I think you need to take time. I really think that what your group of supervisors need to do is go on a retreat, and you need to look at the people in your township. We're paying big money for you to be a better leader of our community. The people here, there's a diverse amount of people that are here. I don't have one person from my development, but we're a very mixed and well-educated and well-financed group of people.
Could you move back
So
over to, could you, the
if
mic?
this becomes an issue, I will walk my group of people, and I think you don't want them to come. I really don't think you want them to come. I think you need to work together, give us better than what you're giving us now. Thank you.
Okay. Any other speakers for this agenda item?
You guys are probably saying, oh, here it comes again. I'm not going to talk about sewer water. I want to talk about Miss Lindsay. I've known Robin. I've been in this community for over 21 years. I've known Robin Lindsay and Judge Lindsay during that time. Robin is an amazing, amazing woman. Amazing. She's done a lot of things for kids and youth that her and Judge Lindsay have kept out of the system. So I don't know, this is the first of these that I've come to. And I'm gonna start coming to more. I need to start coming to more. Because I need to be more informed, because I don't know what's going on, but it's better than watching Netflix. I'd like to congratulate Ms. Thompson, being the first African-American female on the board. I appreciate your enthusiasm, because she's been in contact with me quite often. And she's got a lot of spunk, and I like that. And she's honest. But I will miss Robin. Tell Robin I said that combined we'll have lunch. But whatever her departure is, I'm not sure of, but I think it's a mistake. So thanks. Thanks for your time. Oh, Adam Kushiba's a great guy.
There you go. There you go. Mr. Epstein.
Just for the record, it's Epstein. If you forget, out of the three great Jews, Einstein, Epstein, and Frankenstein, I'm the one in the middle.
I've called you Eric for so long, I'm sorry. I
That's all right.
haven't called you Mr. in a long, long time.
So I think what we're searching here is for some civility and constructive resolution to a problem that frankly was a planned train wreck. Anybody could see this was coming. I've lived in this district, township, 59 years. I go back far enough to remember Dutch Lentz. The first time I was arrested was Judge McGarrow for allegedly throwing 36 dozen eggs at some objects. Had a great experience at Northside Elementary School, Ken Beard. Great experience at Lower Paxton Middle School with Dick Osmond, and he could swing a paddle. And had a great experience at Central Dauphin High School with Mr. or Dr. Brightbill. So within that pantheon of greatness, I would place Robin Lindsay. You're losing a jewel. You don't replace that kind of community knowledge, experience, or dedication. You don't mint people like this anymore. She always got back to you. She always tried to resolve problems. I met Robin when she was on the Planning Commission, and we worked through some very difficult issues, including the Stray Winds Farm issue, which took 10 years. And we all celebrated the resolution of that when we dedicated the park. Behind me is Eric Kessler. I'm sure he's not happy that I'm raising his name. But, we worked through Elizabeth Village. with Robin. So, you know, Robin took on constructive issues. She found a resolution. Most recently, we partnered with her to do a garden over at E.H. Phillips. So I know with which the man is talking about with the baseball park. That was a problem for us. So thank you very much. And hopefully we'll be breaking ground this spring. And maybe one of the things we should consider is naming the garden after Robin Lindsay. You know, people today don't appreciate compromise and moderation. And it's the extremes that are driving the wagon. I think with Robin, she's not replaceable, and the only way to honor her is to find a constructive way out of this morass. I'm not going to impugn anybody. However, I would point to the fact that we have always been able to work well with Amanda and Nick and, of course, George and Adam. It's a bumpy relationship with this young man. You need to address that and acknowledge that, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that. You have to return messages. I mean, you have to interact with the public, and, you know, maybe there's room for growth here. I don't know. But what I would say is this, unquestionably, and he's not going to like me saying this, there's a world of difference between George Wolf and the current management we have now. That's real. And you and I, Chris, have been on boards that have been dysfunctional. It's not fun. So I can't say whether or not you're dysfunctional or functional, but the fact that it came to this, that she feels like she had to resign, is just tragic. So this should be an opportunity for us to find a constructive way out and also to re-examine how we treat constituents. I can tell you, it ain't the gold standard. And I don't doubt that Brad is competent, but things have to change. You know, the status quo is unacceptable. And right now, I don't think we're going down a good path. And I'm not really happy to be saying that because I'm at Central often and I want to be able to work with y'all. But I want to thank Joe for speaking and Pam for speaking out. And again, the way we can honor Robin is to find a constructive way to treat people and to interact with the community. So I thank you for giving me time to speak. I know what it's like to be up there. I was up there yesterday listening to people in the school district tell me some unkind things, but you know, that's the price of power. Thank you.
Anybody else speak on this topic?
Excuse me, Jay Purdy, 4731 Duke Street. Just a really simple question, and I can even direct it to the solicitor. Can the Board of Supervisors refuse to accept Robin Lindsay's letter of resignation?
Unfortunately not.
Your microphone.
I apologize. No, you can't. The board vacancy rules are set forth in the second-class township code, and once one is tendered, the only person that can revoke it is the person resigning, and it has to be revoked prior to acceptance.
Okay. So if you don't accept it tonight, she has time to reconsider.
In theory, that's correct.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name's John Packer, 5723 Kenwood Avenue is the address. I've been here several times over sewer issues within our development. There's some other people here probably have been too. Robin was the only one that reached out, came to the neighborhood numerous times, spent hours, you know, going through issues that we were having there. Some things were directed at Mr. Gottschall. I was never satisfied with any of his answers. I told him that directly in a meeting. So I say all that to say it's a shame that we are losing what everybody here seems to be saying is the most responsive supervisor we have or had. So with what this gentleman just said and what the solicitor maybe you do need to step back and not accept her resignation tonight, because there's probably more people that are going to get up and talk. Some of these officers probably won't for fear of reprisal of something going on, but I would suspect they're here in support of her. This is now the second supervisor that's resigned within the past several
50
months.
days.
What's that?
Within the past 50 days.
50 days. Well, the old adage is where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't know why the previous one did, but I know certain reasons why Robin did. There's been accusations, there's been cause and effect as to why. Well, who's going to determine the facts? Where do we go from here? It appears that an internal investigation is not feasible, because I don't know that anybody in this room or anybody up there is going to trust who our hierarchy is in this township to do that. So where do we go? Do we call the state attorney general? What has to be done? I don't know.
State Attorney General about what?
About whatever culture that's being created here, because that's the insinuation, and I don't believe there's.
I don't think there's any insinuation about legal.
I didn't say legal. I just said
Okay.
the way there's question as to how you're running this township.
Only because you mentioned the Attorney General. That's the
I'm
only
just
reason.
throwing out there. So who's the higher authority than you that can look at you guys and what's going on? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there that somebody else needs to look at this. You have authority over Mr. Gottschall, yes, because as somebody stated, the citizens vote you in, you hire
Yeah.
him, and then you're responsible for him. And
We're responsible for him. The people hire us, and the people fire us.
I get that.
So that's ultimately.
And that only comes in an election, but not for him. If he's part of the problem, then who's the solution? Somebody needs to step up and be the solution. So, I'm just putting some things out there that if some of these accusations, as far as the culture of how this township's being run, are true, it needs looked into further.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Anybody else? Mr. McCormick?
several people stood at that podium and said that no supervisor is responsive. And I know that Robin was very responsive. I've been on this board for a month and a half. Every single citizen that has reached out to me and asked me a question or brought a problem to my attention, I have responded to, usually within the same day that I was asked. So I reject the idea that when people say all the supervisors not being responsive, I feel that as being a personal attack, and I just want you to know there are probably people sitting in this room, and I know there's people not sitting in this room, who when they wrote to me an email, or they called me, or they met me on the street or the coffee shop and asked me a question, I got them an answer. So there's no one who can say they reached out to me and I was not responsive to them. I just wanted to make that point.
Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
White, 6702 Delano Boulevard. In response to what you just stated, Mr. McCormick, I sent emails on January the 18th, the 22nd, the 23rd, and you did not respond. Robin Lindsay, I sent them to everyone on the board. Robin Lindsay was the only one to respond. Then Gutschall responded with a sarcastic remark.
What dates were those emails you sent to me?
22nd, 23rd of January.
I did not receive those emails, ma'am. I don't know why, but I don't have an email that I've not responded to. I'm sorry.
He was new. Maybe you got forwarded to you or something. He was newer. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. White, one of the issues that I haven't been able to address because I hadn't been here when it was going on, but one of the residents of the community has shared with me that they were writing emails to the supervisors, but in 23, but they weren't getting any responses back. I remember a while ago, Robin saying, asking about emails because people were telling her, well, we sent you this email, and you didn't respond. And the question was, that she asked in the executive session was, well, where are the emails? Where are the emails, Brad? We weren't getting the emails. That's a situation. I don't even have an idea as to how to investigate that because I'm not an IT person. But
So, just for some clarification, the supervisors are in charge of Mr. Gutshaw, correct?
Yes.
So why does everything have to be answered by Mr. Gutshaw? Why, when you request information, it has to come from him?
It doesn't. He's the day-to-day manager of the township. We are part-timers, so generally he will have the information that someone's seeking. That's not a matter of seeking his permission. It's a matter of he is the full-time professional who is more likely to have the information.
Okay, but then when he just blows you off in an email and doesn't respond, that's very typical of his response. I stated that I'd like to have a meeting and not bring it to the public, and his response was, my supervisors are here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. No, it could have just been a meeting with the two of us or three of you. He's just very dismissive. And I think the public has stated that collectively. So as supervisors, when you do meet, review his position, call him to task. What is it that he's doing? He doesn't answer the phone. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
can I respond to, I would like to, go ahead, Mr. Lindsay, sorry.
I'd just like to piggyback off of Mr. Packer's comment about Robin going out to Kenwood to look at all the stuff there. She was chastised by your manager for going out there. She doesn't belong out there. That's the problem, Mr. Chairman. That's the problem. We have created a monster, and he is just alienating everybody, including employees, and you need to get this fixed. In 42 and a half years of public service in the township, as an elected official and a police officer, this is the worst board and the worst management that we've had in this township. And we've had a lot of good boards and a lot of good managers. But when you have a manager chewing out a supervisor who goes out to serve the constituents, there's something wrong with that. And my wife does not lie. She does not lie. And the board members have just turned a blind eye on this. It's just the way it is. And I'm not happy. And I don't think the rest of these people are happy either, because this is a great township, and we don't deserve to be treated this way. These people are not here because they want to cause problems. They are here because they want to solve problems. It's about time that the members of the board take action against the management of the township, both of them.
Well, we're going to hopefully get to the rest of the agenda and start taking care of the problems that a lot of these people are here for.
Let me respond to Ms. White's comment, and then Mr. Lindsay's comment will loop in also. I wrote this out. I didn't think I would have time to get it, but because it applies. As a supervisor, I follow up on various actions. Last week, I followed up on a recommendation from an attorney we hired to look into some complaints. She recommended that we create a remote work policy for the board to review to see if we wanted to adopt it, and an employee complaint policy so that employees have a way to safely complain. I'm trying to cut down on receiving anonymous mail. I asked about the status, as Brad has been the one tasked with this. It started back in November when the attorney finished her investigation. His response was, I'm working on them. It's not a priority. I'm running the township. It's on the back burner. I offered that we look over what he had. Another supervisor accused me of micromanaging. As employees have complained anonymously about some of the people getting to work remotely, I would like a consistent policy so that people are treated even-handedly. For me to be criticized about asking about a policy recommended by the attorney we had to investigate personnel issues, I have a problem with that. These are legitimate concerns. So, this is where
All right.
this is where we are.
Do we have a motion to accept the resignation of Robin Lindsay from the Board of Supervisors?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. I think a vocal, you get the vote, Ms. Smith? 3 of us, Ms. Thompson was opposed. All right, now we move on to the second presentation of ordinance 2025-01, Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance Amendment. We'll let folks, whoever wants to depart, can depart.
Thank you for everything.
Members of the board, I'll just tee this up really quickly as the audience kind of settles down a bit. But it appears as though Mr. Staub of HRG, who was the intended presenter for this evening's item, is not able to make it this evening. However, we do have obviously here, as we'll take the stage here very briefly, Director Zerby and Mr. Garrett. And they are going to go ahead and present what Mr. Staub had intended to present. Just by way of a very quick presentation to this matter, this, of course, is, as you know, the second presentation as duly noted on the agenda. The board had heard this presentation in some fashion at your last workshop. As this board and likely various members of the public are aware, the Planning Commission has at this point now voted to not recommend to the Board of Supervisors the adoption of Ordinance 2025-01 related to the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. So this evening's presentation is going to be a very high-level presentation of the zoning ordinance as it relates to kind of the process and the product and where we stand as it relates to this evening, and kind of what the next steps are in this very long and very comprehensive zoning ordinance. So with all that said, I think Director Zerby is prepared to begin. And
I think I would also like to set it up for neighbors who are here, maybe particularly about the Claremont situation, and I think it's only fair to tell you, as Mr. Gottschall noted, that the Planning Commission voted not to recommend. I can say there is not a majority support on the board to go forward with a comprehensive change that includes the Claremont change. So we were going to communicate to the Planning Commission to send us a comprehensive zoning plan that does not include changing that commercial neighborhood, commercial general aspect of the plan. There's not support for that. So we look forward to receiving a product with the other comprehensive changes that you'll hear. Comprehensive is the key word. But we will ask them to send us one that does not have any of the changes regarding Claremont. Well, yeah, at this point, I don't know when that would actually come back. Does that have to go back through planning?
come back to this board. Yeah, if it's the intent of the board this evening to not move forward with this ordinance as drafted right now, yes, you would, it would be staff's recommendation that you kick it back to Planning Commission to thoroughly vet out any of the remaining issues that exist currently, and then finally, so, I mean, we're talking likely a couple of months, if not longer, until that would ever have a chance to come back to this board to adopt in final form.
I guess it would be at their public meeting and then come back here. So you'd have a couple chances to look it over, yep.
Mr. Chairman, that would also include the language change on the CN.
Map change, language change, nothing, we don't want anything affecting Claremont.
I understand you're saying that, I read something about the language change of the commercial neighborhood.
Changing the definition.
Yes.
The question is about changing the definition, and we're asking for a product that doesn't change the map designation or the definition. That does.
In that chart that was shown, and what I looked up, there was the existing, and then there was the proposed. And the proposed zoning, or the proposed change to the neighborhood development would cause certain exceptions to be allowing
Yeah.
certain things that
Right. You can change the language, you can change the designation. We're asking for none of that. Yes.
Could you make it at the mic, please?
Last comment for the evening, thank you. On the 22nd, I did send an email to supervisors of January, and I received a response from Mr. Vetchell stating that my notes would be forwarded to the Department of Community Development for inclusion in the record and consideration for the zoning proposal. But my notes are not included in this evening's agenda from
Okay. Do we know where those notes ended up?
We did not, as a matter of public agenda packet, include the written comments. However, as noted by the commenter, we did forward that information over to the Department of Community Development to be included in the public record. So we have it, and I did make a response to that regard.
It was included in the Planning Commission's packet prior to their meeting, and you'll have it prior to your public hearing as well.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I know Nick's waiting to present, but do we have specific questions on this topic? I guess we'll hold off a minute, Nick.
Hi, George Palmer again, 6480 Liners Lane. I'm here on behalf of the Palmer Foundation, who owns the tract next to Trinity Church. And I just want to get clarification. I was at the last planning meeting, and I got some mixed signals, and I want to really and I understand now that you're going to relook at the zoning again, and then come up with a new plan, which would take, what, 45 days notice? Is that correct? Yeah, at least 45 days notice, so. All right, well, I don't want to get redundant here, but I do know there was an error in the zoning because the church I attend, Trinity, is sitting on an R1 piece of land, and it should be on an institutional. So you want to make sure those corrections before you go through the gyration. And we're not interested as a foundation to come back in again for individual zoning. We'd like it to be taken care of at this time. And the last question I have for each one of you, would you really want a CCRC in this area? I'd like every person up there to say yes or no.
Trying to bring myself up to speed looking at notes from the planning commission on your particular issues. So give me a second while I get up to speed.
Sir, sir, would it be appropriate if you give just a brief indication of what you're looking for in that specific area?
I've gotten a lot of demand. 20 years ago, I put when I bought the track, I bought it in the foundation to do things for the community. That's the only reason we did it. If I didn't want to do that, I'd have bought it in one of our building companies. So it didn't work 20 years ago. I could go into all the reasons why, but I had every supervisor agreed that they wanted this project 20 years ago. And then at the meeting, we had a hostile meeting, and every one of them voted it down. So I don't want to go through that aggravation again this time. If we're going to do help for the community, we want you to help us do that as supervisors. That's why I'm asking the question. Do you want that in this community? It's a pretty simple question. Yeah, it's a place where people can go aged, and they stay there until the Lord calls them home. It's that simple. They take care of them from A to Z.
So it's a nursing home?
Yeah, there'll be like individual cottages they can live in, and as their needs, if they have dementia or whatever, they can go to a facility within the complex.
And we know there's a need for older, housing for older folks, and we've accommodated that. So yes, in general, I'd be very interested in that.
Okay.
So it's a nursing home. Is it also assisted living?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And then is it also finally hospice care?
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
it's
the whole package?
It's the package, yes.
Okay. All right.
So that's my question. Does the board really want it?
Yeah, and we can't.
I know that, but I want
decide
to know
on
the
that.
sentiment, and I'd like it to be on the public record, because I was stung last time, and I don't want to go there again.
Yeah. Well, for me, the general concept is a good one, but until you see a plan and everything
Oh, I
else, we
understand.
can't commit.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mr. Palmer, I'm sympathetic to your question, and I think one member of the board, I need to understand, the scope of what you're trying to do. I think I'd generally be in favor of that.
Yeah, because the township doesn't have one. And a lot of people have to move out of the township because they don't have one. So, does the township really want it? That's really what I'd like to know. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions regarding this particular part of the comprehensive zone? I don't see any.
Can I just
Sure.
comment?
Yeah.
I got one thing, 'cause you said, this is about the Claremont Development thing, and I guess I believe.
Take your time and give us your name.
All right. This is what I want to give you. My name is Alfonso Rozzi, Rozzi. And in the minutes of the Planning Commission, I don't know, they called me Fozzie or Foxy or something. I don't know. So I just want to clarify that that's my name. And I live at 631 Lancaster Avenue. It was recorded wrong in the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting. And beyond that, I just, wanted to reiterate that, yes, if you change different definitions and so forth, that would be detrimental, or it could be more detrimental than it would be without it. And if you go to general commercial, it'd be totally not great for the neighborhood at all. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so that's that particular issue, and we did have a scheduled presentation on the whole process itself. It is a big one. We don't do it every year. So go ahead, Nick. I guess this will be a good time.
Thank you, board members. My name is Nick Garrett. I'm the Planning and Zoning Officer for Lower Paxton Township. And prior to doing the introduction for the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance Update 2.0 to just reiterate the Planning Commission meeting that took place on February 5th. The Planning Commission did vote 4-3 to not recommend approval of the draft zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission is in favor of the body, the text of the ordinance. The issue at hand is what's been defined by our residents as item number 12, which was the proposed rezoning of 3 parcels that were along North Mountain Road that were to be proposed upzoned from neighborhood commercial to general commercial. Coming from that meeting, it was our intent that, depending on the Board of Supervisors, obviously, that the proposed official map would be amended to reflect the current neighborhood commercial, which would also be a substantial change, which means process starts over again, 45-day advertising resubmittal process we'd have to resubmit to the adjacent municipalities and Dauphin County to reflect that our proposed official map has indeed changed again. I don't believe from that meeting there was any direction or discussion. Well, there wasn't a motion made regarding the 2 other requests that the township received for also for rezoning. One was the, as I call it, the Palmer property from R1 to institutional, and also for an adjacent land that is situated across from Commerce Drive that's currently zoned R1. We had a request from Business Campus. The Planning Commission indicated during the meeting that it was more or less kind of late in the game for those 2 requests. But now that we have, appears that our official map will be amended again, this is something that will have to be obviously contemplated. I just wanted to kind of organize those thoughts.
You said the other one is that the one off Crumbs Mill Road?
Yes, and I have exhibits here tonight that we can touch on once we go through the comprehensive zoning ordinance update. I apologize, I wasn't intending on presenting on this portion of tonight's meeting, but I was happy to speak freely about anything else, but
thank you.
We'll move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so the zoning ordinance, the project itself has been over a 3-year project where the township entered into the zoning ordinance itself isn't a red line version where the ordinance is being amended. This is a complete repeal and replace of our current ordinance. Our last zoning ordinance was adopted in 2006. As you can see, numerous years have passed. Typically, zoning ordinances, on average, are probably updated every 10 plus years. We're well beyond that. As for project schedule, how it stood was that our zoning ordinance 2.0, we received our second draft version on December 23rd. We had the draft then delivered to all of our adjacent municipalities as well as Dauphin County. That started the 45-day review period. Comments received. We received no comments from any municipalities, but we did receive a comment letter from Dauphin County Planning Commission. They were not, the comment letter was not one that says they weren't in favor of it. They simply offered comments and recommendations on how we should proceed with our zoning ordinance. The project itself was to align the ordinance plans with modern uses, protect our stable neighborhoods, provide redevelopment potential. You will see that with what we discussed on the January 14th workshop meeting with updating what our proposed official zoning map was to look like, simplify and modernize the zoning ordinance, and then modifications from the May 2024 draft. As you may remember, we received significant comments from the residents and from staff where we showed lands along Locust Lane to be zoned from R1 to R2. That was something that was not supported, and from that meeting we had to then go back and amend the draft to reflect the lands to remain R1. Also, we looked to combine the office neighborhood to business campus zoning district, which also proved to be not supported, where all of our adjacent lands were to remain office neighborhood. Research and background, looked into the 2018 comprehensive plan recommendation. We reviewed the existing zoning ordinance and map. We had to identify what was missing and discuss what needed to be added. New uses, solar facilities, wireless communication facilities, updated parking standards. And obviously, as we have here, we had the revisions to the 2024 draft ordinance. We have a link to the ordinance that you can find on our website that will provide you the entire draft ordinance, which is a 360-page, really exciting read, as well as our draft zoning map that shows the properties that are to be identified as rezoned, as well as what properties were discussed to remain unaffected. The revisions, the existing R1 was changed as part of the May 2024 draft. I touched base on that. That was the R2. We wanted to propose that to be zoned R2, was changed back to the current R1. That was along Locust Lane. Also, the Carroll, Paxton, and Gale Drives, properties along Lingelstown Road. That neighborhood was zoned office neighborhood due to resident comments and then review of the character of that neighborhood. It was determined that that land should be zoned to R1 low density, and those properties were zoned R1 south of Bland Run along Lingelstown Road. Anything north of Bland Run continued to be zoned office neighborhood. Other revision that took place was our accessory use table. We updated standards for keeping of animals, bees, and livestock were added to the accessory use section. I touched base that we had county review. We're now again working on revisions based on feedback. And well, the next step was the elected officials meeting, which looks to be determined on when that will take place. Brad, would you like me to move forward to the review of the Claremont properties along North Mountain Road that was a determining factor for the Planning Commission meeting last week?
I don't know that we need to revisit that because we don't plan on enacting that.
Okay. Then I guess I'll, what we have before us is we had the Palmer Family Foundation request. This was for the lands that was situated along Locust Lane for properties that's currently zoned R1 that would to be rezoned institutional. They had their submitted written request that went before the Planning Commission. Also, as I'm moving forward here, we've also received for requests from Far Hat Excavating LLC to rezone lands I discussed along Crumbs Mill Road. That's currently zoned R1. That's to be that was requested to be rezoned as a business campus. Our comprehensive plan has identified this area as an area that is to be zoned business campus, but it was never contemplated by our Planning Commission to follow the recommendations of the future land use plan. There is no legal requirement to follow the comprehensive plan. That's merely a policy guide for the township, but it was submitted in the exhibits by Farhart Excavating LLC. Not sure if this is a great representation of where this is located. We have a map here that I can show you as well. Bear with me. Right here. My apologies. This map highlights the two areas within the township where we recently received requests, where at the Planning Commission meeting there was no motion made to include them in the request, but it appeared that it wasn't the desire of the Planning Commission to include it in the proposed official zoning map. And board members, with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this.
Mr. I'm sorry. Mr. Guy, I was just going to mention, just for the sake of maybe kind of reiterating or wrapping it up for the board's sake, so that the at this point, the three kind of points or issues, if you will, that the planning commission is going to, if it's the desire of the board this evening, to kind of go back and hash back out, are the Palmer request, the North Mountain Road zoning map revision,
Correct.
and also to simplify, the North Mountain Road text revision.
That would be, that we would need a direct request from the Board of Supervisors, because the commercial neighborhood zoning, the neighborhood commercial zoning ordinance allows for auto fueling stations, since there is a concern in that area. It allows for auto fueling stations to be permitted via special exception, meaning you're going to have to go before the zoning hearing board if you want to get permission for that use to be located in any commercial neighborhood zoning district. That's been part of the zoning ordinance from its original or initial draft. From last week's planning commission meeting, we had no discussion on that language being amended. We currently have auto fueling stations located in commercial neighborhoods in Lower Paxton Township. It's still, it's not a by right use in commercial neighborhood. You still would have to go before the zoning hearing board and meet the criteria that's set forth by a special exception.
Okay, so however, they are the three items, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And then also to tack on, and maybe at some point, Solicitor Madden may, either request this or recommend this as well. But there's also an interest, I believe, at this point, to also, while we're at it, kind of going back to the drawing board, if you will, to have the planning commission at the same time consider a revision or an amendment to the official township comprehensive plans map, because they're at this point, in other words, if we change at this point the township zoning map, there would be an inconsistency between the zoning map and the comprehensive plan map, the land use map.
That's correct, Mr. Gottschall. It's been recommended by Dauphin County that our future land use map be amended to reflect the changes that have been proposed with our official zoning map. Currently, there are inconsistencies with that. There's been rezonings in the township where Dauphin County Planning Commission has approved those, recommended approval for those rezonings, but they've also had to comment that they've suggested that the township amend their comprehensive, the future land use plan to reflect those changes. And given the comments we received from Dauphin County, this is something that we're going to want to move forward and get that done, so that there isn't such a discrepancy between both maps.
Anything else, Mr. Neubauer? Scott Shaw? Mr. Miller?
I'm just, a little clarification, on Mountain Road where the Copper Frog is and the beer distributor, the one, that zoning, it was voted down, I think, 4-3. I just, are they ever going to, is it going to be what the people asked for, the people were heard, and it was voted accordingly, and this map is going to reflect exactly what they had said at the meeting? I'm a little uncertain. You had said something, I don't know. I thought it was wording one way, but not. Is it going to be in writing to reflect the exact wishes of the people that they were given at that meeting?
That's the intention of this board, yes.
Okay. There's nobody here. And also maybe perhaps that missing 30-foot buffer that's in there somewhere. That might be something they could use. There is a buffer there that doesn't exist. And I thought, well, what a time to put it back, to clean that up. So, okay, thank you.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
can I speak based on that issue? I'm the house that, and and my two neighbors on either side of me are the houses that no buffer is there. Because it was taken out and they expanded the parking lot, even though I don't know who gave them permission to do that. And the other thing I wanted to clarify, I just want to know if I understand this correctly. I took a picture of the property here. Yeah. So I don't know if you wanted me to show them. Oh, you can show them. Yeah, there's no, that parking lot right there is 3 feet from my property line. And it goes from my house, the neighbor on one side of me, and the neighbor on the other side.
So here, this is the buffer.
And when our development was built, there was supposed to be a 30-foot buffer zone from that to the parking area. Now, the other question, I want to understand that you said, I looked up, the Board of Supervisors had a thing in the about the definition of neighborhood commercial versus general commercial versus the definition change of neighborhood commercial that would allow what he had talked about under special exception. It would allow like gas stations or auto repair shops and things like that. Now, you said that is not going to change now?
That is a desire of this board. There is not a majority on this board that wants to make those changes.
All right, thank you. I just want to make sure I understood that.
Okay. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
I'm Zen Farhad with Farhad Excavating. The items that the Planning Commission touched on with the Crumbs Mill Road lot was if we would be able to use the property with the power line there. And my intent would be make it business campus, as the plan shows. And the utility company, PP&L, would allow us to put a parking lot underneath those lines if we'd have like 2 small offices there. I just wanted to touch on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, we've made our position clear, and I think we can move on to the next item, since that does not require an action. The next item is presentation of staff requests to hold 2025 fireworks at George Park. And we have our Public Safety Director, Mr. Adam Kashiba.
Good evening, everyone, members of the board. Just for everyone at home watching, my name's Adam Kashiba. I am the Director of Public Safety, have been such for the last 7 years. I want to thank the Board of Supervisors giving me the opportunity to come up after speaking with staff, other staff, Parks and Rec.
And Director, I'm just going to say real quickly that there's always a lot of talk about how this started and where this come from. And the fact is, you're expected every year. We really don't give a lot of general direction regarding that, but every year after a major event, you look back and you see how things went, what worked, what didn't work. So obviously the fireworks is a huge one. And evaluating public safety and evaluating, is this the best way, is this the best place, is you and other people in the administration doing their jobs. So just as far as how we got here, that's a very simplistic way of saying how we got here. But it's you guys doing your jobs. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. You took up most of my argument away here.
Okay, well, you flesh it out.
No. So I did, you're correct. After every major event, there's always an after-action planning, and we can get into that. But I just, for those in the room and those who don't know me, just want to give you a little background so you're looking at someone up here making a pitch to change or move an event that's been happening in one part of your township and moving it to another, and just give you a little background about myself for those watching. So I have 32 years in law enforcement, 40 years in the fire service, and about 36 years as an EMT and or paramedic. I've dedicated my life to public safety. the bulk of my career as a Pennsylvania State Police trooper, and ultimately ending is my career as a troop commander. During that time, I had a lot of events that I was responsible for either planning or be a part of planning. Those events went from anywhere from presidential visits to governor's inaugurations to probably the largest one that I ever had partaken in planning was the Gettysburg 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Battle. That particular event, 40,000 people a day, over 500,000 people during the time frame that we did that planning event, over 200 troopers and other local law enforcement to secure that. Again, many planning, many operational plans throughout that time frame. So to just give everyone a little background. So now reflecting back on really several years, but most importantly the last 2 years of the fireworks event at Coons Park. And as you would say, Mr. Judge, it's an after action review, Mr. Judge. So we've done that. We look at that every time after a major event. We gather everyone involved and kind of summarize what we can do better. In this particular case, I'm going to give you a little bit background on those 2 previous years that are my target years to discuss on why we needed to move this, why a change was necessary. Specifically, the event's been held as Mr. DeSanto indicated last week for many years up in the Coons Park, Lingelstown area. I want to take you back to 2023 when we first established some significant operational considerations, concerns, and arrests related to that. In 2023, we had a total of 8 arrests that year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we never had any arrests prior to that. And those were just the ones that we could actually physically take into custody. Of those 8 arrests, 3 LP residents and 5 others, all of them were juveniles. And at the very beginning of that, to emphasis on safety and what we're dealing with the juvenile element these days, one of those individuals had a stolen handgun on him when we took him into custody. Numerous fighting and disorderly conduct and fighting events occurred. Again, we arrested 8. There were many others that got away, kind of worked their way back through the narrow streets and other portions of the Lingelstown area. 2024, again, 8 arrests, 7 juveniles, 1 adult. Only one of them was an LP resident. We're seeing a lot of these issues coming in from other areas. 4 charged with disorderly conduct, 4 charged with fighting and resisting arrest, to include throwing fireworks at a police animal, which last year required us to call the assistance of the Pennsylvania State Police Mounted Unit. So we had 6 Mounted Unit troopers there. We had individuals from the Dauphin County Mobile Field Force, in addition to a good third of our police department to secure this venue. Moving forward, we had to take a look at what it was that was drawing that area. Obviously, it was the fireworks. It was the day before. The other big event was Harrisburg City's fireworks on the 4th. But specifically looking at Coons Park, it's a condensed area. And we took an effort to secure most of that area after the 23 event in 24, which took that particular park down to 54 parking spaces. And we secured those parking spaces in the area where the food trucks were for handicapped individuals. So that limited access to pretty much any vehicle access in and around the park. The roadways around the park were very congested. At one particular time, we had a vehicle actually just park on the street and folks walked away from it congesting the street. So taking a look at how many acres that we have in that park for viewing area is, we took a look at that. There's 10 acres for viewing area in that park. Exclusionary zone where that launch area is, we have to have a standoff distance for that. So 10 acres that they can actually view, whether it's in their chairs, on a blanket, you name it. No sidewalks on any of the side streets that surround that area. No sidewalks that help in any manner along North Mountain Road. And all the businesses and the school along North Mountain Road are sporadic with their parking spaces. I was unable to identify how many they would be and how basically how they were spread out. So we had to look at an alternative. in our after action. That alternative, we thought, an area that we used a lot for a very large event that we have every year, which was the National Night Out event, Night Out for Public Safety that we have in George Park. So we took a hard look at that. Myself and members of the staff, as well as Parks and Rec, took an idea, and we said, how can we make this better? Can it be safer? Can it be more secure down there? So in looking at that particular park, we examined the viewing area in that particular park. How many acres do we have in that park for people to actually sit and enjoy and view the fireworks from? In that particular area, there's 22.2 total acres to view from. That's taking some area of parking, one of the fields as well for parking. When we take a look at all the parking spots available to us within the park, again, securing one of those fields as we do with Night Out, we have a total of 620 parking spots available to us in that park for spectators. Now Rachel Scott's going to talk about some of the agreements that we have already done with other businesses in the area. When we total up all those other businesses that have agreed to allow us to park people in there for the fireworks event, we have an additional 605 spots available to us. The other very important thing when it comes to public safety that I can tell you is there's an exclusionary zone. The fields down near Zach's Playhouse, Zach's batting cage, and the fields down there will be the exclusionary zone. That entire area will be secured for the launch area and is completely distant from any person viewing the fireworks that night. So in the rare case that we would have a catastrophic event of fireworks going off, those injuries and or deaths would be contained within those individuals working in that particular area and would not extend to where the viewing areas are. The park offers natural barriers as we look through there. There's natural hills and wooded areas and fencing from the adjoining properties that also help us to secure when we do have problems of individuals coming in, that their ability to flee into particular parks or portions of the park or side streets are limited compared to what they are in the Linglestown area. So where does that leave us? Where that leaves us, obviously, is we took a hard look at what we're dealing with on the last 2 years. I think in planning over all the events that I've been a part of, and now that we've seen over the years, and even as recently in New Orleans, we have to break the cycle if we want to stop something from occurring. People get used to it being in a certain area. We have to control an area a little bit better, offer more expansive area for people and less congested areas where people can enjoy the fireworks, yet still afford us the opportunity to secure it properly and deal with any issues that may arrive. So what I believe, my professional opinion, is the best out of the two options, and I'm not taking any kind of personal feelings into this at all or history. I'm looking at the two locations, and professional opinion is the best location is George Park. Now, in closing, I'll leave you with this. We have to consider public safety, obviously, is number one, and you all said that before, and Mr. Judd, you've reminded me of that when I walked up here. So that's our mission. That's what we're here to do. If the board has a discussion after I'm done here talking today, and the board wishes to go in a completely different direction, I can assure you that me and my staff and the other staff in the township will do everything under our power to secure whatever venue you tell us to go to. Some are a little more challenging than the others. I understand that. But our job is public safety, and we will focus on that no matter what your direction is. At this point, the decision to either move this or keep it in Coons Park is completely in your hands. I just wanted to make sure that I gave you the information and presented it in a way that you understood why there was an after action and why we wanted to discuss moving it in the manner in which we did. Rachel Scott will come up and talk a little bit about the more administrative side of things and maybe discuss some of the things that were discussed last week relative to the agreements and that sort of thing. But operationally, that's our position from the public safety side.
Director Scott, Director Koshiba, at any, let me just for the record, may I ask, at any point in time, did I personally direct your department to do an after action report, or second to that, change the venue of the fireworks? Third question, did I at any point direct you or make a decision relative to the venue of the fireworks for 2025?
Absolutely not. You did not direct us to do any of those things. Again, our after-action review occurs after every major incident. That's how we learn. That's how we make changes to get better. None of that direction came from you. That began with me. It began in Parks and Rec in a meeting that the minute that we started talking about this, again, the fire chief, deputy fire chief's here. He picked up the phone and contacted the fire chief in Lingelstown, and we began telling them that this was a point of discussion, and absolutely we had not made a decision yet. Not our decision to make, not anyone's decision but the board to make. So that has not occurred.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chief Koshiba.
Sorry.
So we've had 8 incidents in 23 and 8 incidents in 24. Safety incidents where you had...
Yes, ma'am. 8 arrests on each of those years. Many other incidents we were not actually able to take people into custody because of their ability to flee throughout the crowds. But yes, 8 arrests each year.
Okay. So could you help me understand how the ability to flee throughout the crowds would be different at George Park than at Coons Park?
Just the expansive nature of the additional acreage that they would have to cover. Sure, they probably could get away. And a lot of the barriers, especially with D&H and the residences in the area, have fencing along that would prevent them from doing that. I heard some discussion about being able to flee down into the wooded area. More power to them if they want to flee into the wooded area near Nye Road, because they're going to sink, and it'll be easy to catch them. So, but it would be much easier because we would be able to utilize those natural barriers or physical barriers by the businesses and homes to assist us in less officers securing those perimeters.
I see. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Rachel Scott, Parks and Recreation Director. I just wanted to take a moment to clarify any of the administration that led to this request or recommendation that we have. Just noting that after each event, we do collaborate, but on a monthly basis, the departments throughout the township actually get together to discuss all the events so that we're preparing each year for community events that we host or other hosted events by the community. So it's important that we note that in September, Sky Shooters, the contract that we signed with eventually, had approached Lingelstown Fire Company requesting to go through the annual process of signing the contract. At that time, we had noted that we wanted to update the contract to ensure that the township had the ability to cancel, because on the contract, it specifically just said that Sky Shooters had the ability to cancel the event for concerns of safety. So at that time, I worked with the fire chief of Lingelstown Fire Department to collaborate on the contract over the next 2 months. In November, when we had our park meeting to see where we were going with this, that moment we discussed what are the opportunities of potentially moving it to another park. And as Director Kishiba said, we had the fire chief contact Lingelstown Company immediately and invited them to a December meeting, a January meeting, where we said that we were hoping to have a report to make a recommendation by the end of the month. And so that's what we did, was provide that recommendation to Brad to then deliver it to the Board of Supervisors. So if there's any other questions on clarification on how it came to the township signing, there was a moment that we weren't sure if we were going to host the fireworks after what had transpired the previous year.
So Director Scott, just to ask the question for the record again, did I at any point during this process direct you or your department to make any decisions relative to the venue of the 2025 fireworks?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. And the only direction I did provide to you, number one, was to ensure that we had a contract that allowed the fireworks to continue, whether or not the event happened at Coons or George.
Correct.
And number two, to ensure that at some point during this process, you, both the Parks and Rec Department and the Department of Public Safety, at some point provide to me a recommendation from staff relative to where the event should be held, and then at which point I would provide that to the Board of Supervisors for ultimate decision?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Board members, any questions for Ms. Scott?
I just want to say that I want to thank both Director Kashivan and Director Stott for doing their job and doing the after action and coming to us with a recommendation. It's entirely appropriate for them to do that and for the board to make a final decision.
Any public comment on this issue?
Hello, my name is Dr. Brian Epp. I happen to be a longtime resident of Lower Paxton, as well as have several offices in the area, including 701 North Mountain Road. I am privileged to be one of the providers for our law enforcement in the area, as well as first responders. And I'm here tonight just because I'm aware of the proposal, and especially keeping the public safety first and foremost as a physician in the area and working with law enforcement. I find it's very important that we heed the advice. We're in changing times. I recognize that Lingelstown itself has a long history, and there might be compelling thoughts to be able to continue to have the fireworks there. I think for us to heed the advice of the professionals, especially experienced professionals, in moving the venue, I can tell you I've had the privilege of showing up myself for National Night Out, where being there as a provider, I was able to bring trailers, different equipment to be able to demonstrate. And the last 2 years we did that at the proposed new location. So from personal experience, it was far more accessible. Me bringing a large camper trailer behind a large tow vehicle, the accessibility to get in and out, I think is the paramount consideration here. And especially in terms of aiding and assisting our first responders and law enforcement to have accessibility to the area, as well as to be able to clear traffic, I think is of pinnacle importance. So I think it's a valuable recommendation that should be heeded. And having the pleasure of working with a multitude of the law enforcement in the area, and understanding there's oftentimes cooperative effort, especially where fire is involved, I just wanted to make sure that that was being effectively communicated. The one thing that I have heard, especially being privy to tonight's meeting, especially understanding the resignation of the other supervisor, is resoundingly I hear that certain suggestions have not been heeded, is the flavor I take away from this evening. And I guess I just felt so compelled when I heard from certain people, as the buzzword was of tonight's conversation, that the recommendations would be falling on deaf ears. So I'm sure it doesn't take too much of a recollection to reflect back upon Butler and the incidents that happened there, especially as certain recommendations weren't heeded and fell on deaf ears, and we saw the consequences of an attempted assassination. So especially with changing times, I hope that you are open-minded to a change in venue.
Well, I'll just add, since there were comments tonight, and obviously we have to balance public safety experts and desires of the residents, and that's the way it goes always, but our record as far as supporting the public safety personnel, this board and previous boards, is really can't be seriously questioned if you just go down the line, and even talking comments earlier tonight, and the board member who resigned, I probably voted with her 99.99% of the time on most things, including public safety. So that was a good point. And I think you hit the nail on the head as far as, got to take the stakes seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name is Kelly Fegley. I have been a resident owned for 22 years. I've lived here since middle school in Lower Paxton Township. Kind of want to step to the side so I can see everybody. I'm super short. My comments are not, I know no one personally, so they're not directed at anyone personally. It's directed towards actions. Until last week, we weren't even aware of this, only because a firefighter came in and addressed the situation. And that is the only reason that we're here talking about it, because it's been handled behind closed doors to this point. Mr. Judd, you defended Lower Paxton and said that it's defendable because they have to do the report for public safety, and then we can have a discussion on it. However, there was no discussion prior to him bringing it to our light.
But understand, ma'am.
Let me finish, and then you can
Because there's a lot of misinformation tonight.
I watched the meeting.
Go ahead.
So the first thing that I'll comment on is how it was handled. I agree with you, and thank you for doing the research. We should research it and figure out what is the public safety option and have a discussion. But how it was run last night, there was not a discussion. And I'm going to tell you exactly what he said. His quote was, the township decided to change the course and cut the check on our own. And I'm wondering, none of the supervisors knew what was happening. It was not a public discussion. None of the community members knew what was happening or had the chance to comment because it was not a public discussion. So who is the township that made the decision to change the course? Mr. Gutschall did, on his own, unilaterally. He cut out the fire company from any decisions, didn't let them know ahead of time, very unprofessional. He was added to the contract. You were added to the contract because you asked to be a part of the Linglestown fireworks. It is not the Lower Paxton Township fireworks. They started this activity in 1955. They have funded it. They have planned it. They have used the resources of everyone who volunteered to help. So to just cut them out and say, we're changing the course of action, we're taking over, we wrote the check, is despicable to not even include them. They have been doing it forever. That's the first thing that made me come in, to see the attitude of, I changed it. Nobody up there looked like they knew what was going on from at that point. Only one person knew what was happening and why it was changed. So I'm glad we got to hear today why it was changed. So the second point I want to talk about is not how it was handled or how we treat the people who are serving us, but from the public safety aspect. I did not hear in that plan how the safety was going to be affected. I heard that the viewing area is larger. I don't know if you've attended the Linglestown fireworks, but not even half of the area has people seating in it. There is plenty of space there. And the location in Lingelstown allows everybody in miles radius to stay in their houses and watch it from their houses. There are so many traditional picnics that happen miles from there where people hang out in the comfort of their homes watching the fireworks. So that is one aspect. That's one thing I heard, the viewing area. That's not public safety. Second thing I heard, parking. I heard they have 400 parking spots and our parking area in Coons is closed. I believe, and I didn't know we were going to go over numbers, but I believe if you count up the parking spaces in Lingelstown, there are more. You have 2 schools, which I don't know how the parking there is sporadic because it's the same parking spaces every time. So you have 2 schools, you have 3 churches, you have a public parking lot at the end of Blue Mountain Parkway, plus all the side streets where people go and park and hang out with their friends and then walk over. So if we did the math, there's probably much more parking in Lingelstown than there is in the one area off Nyes Road. The other thing, public safety. Again, I've heard nothing about a plan on how to handle the middle schoolers or teenagers. They are dropped off in droves, unsupervised. They like to show their stuff and get into fights. That is not going to change by moving it to another location. I heard change tradition, change behavior. I don't think that moving it to a different park is going to change any middle school or high school's behavior. If they want to run, they are going to run. They are going to run through the woods. They are going to run up where CASA is, in the building up there. They're going to run in any direction they can. It is not fenced in. They are not contained. They're going to run at Coons or George Park. So the only thing that I heard that made sense was they might be able to catch someone there because they're slowed down, because it's wooded. So we're changing tradition. You're breaking a contract that Lower Paxton Township signed, giving the fire department the right to hold this event. They sold that land to you for $3,000. So the one thing they asked was to have the event on those dates. So we're going to move the event so we could maybe catch one person who got away because they were fighting. So you're taking a community tradition away to catch one kid who got away? That doesn't sound logical to me. I didn't hear anything about safety except for catching someone maybe running. As far as public safety, I would be more concerned that George Park, it's a wonderful park. It's a great park for the times where it's an open house like the night out or fall festival, where people are coming and going for an extended period of time in an open house style. But now you put the residents who used to sit at their houses, now everyone who sits in there, into one area with one entrance and one exit. That to me is much more about safety than one kid getting away. So what happens, God forbid, somebody brings a gun, like in Harrisburg a couple years ago, and shots are fired. Do you think people are going to get in their cars, stay to the right-hand side, and file out in a line? No, there's going to be panic. Everybody's going to get in their cars and go to that tiny little 2-lane road and try to get out. How are emergency responders going to get in to an area that has one way in and one way out? How are medical people going to get in if we have an event like that? One way in, one way out. This is not set up for a large event that all dismisses at one time, or if something should happen. It's a great event for a long period of time where people come in and go. So, in conclusion, I find it to be more of a public safety issue to be confined in a space that has one entrance and one exit with hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands. I don't know, on Facebook, someone estimated 1,000 to 4,000 people watch the fireworks than it is for one teenager to get away because he was fighting. Other than that, I didn't hear any other public safety that moving the park was going to help us. And if I'm incorrect, let me know. But all I've heard is size, parking, which is actually in favor of Lingelstown, and kids running through the neighborhoods. Kids are going to run no matter what park you put them in. So I would just like to know how it's making us safer to be in a confined space with no entry or exit, except for one. I don't know any stadium, any area, any concert venue, any hotel, any restaurant that only has one entrance, one exit, and if something happens, you're stuck. That's not public safety. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if I may, just again, to reiterate the point, and because it continues to seem to be the public perception, and again, I appreciate the fact that perception is reality, but in this case, reality doesn't seem very real to me, okay? Relative to the issue of the check and the contract, let me just ask again, Director Scott, Director Koshiba, please come to the podium. And if you're saying I'm lying, that's fine. I get it. But if we're saying that Director Koshiba and Director Scott are lying on this issue, we have a bigger problem on our hands. Relative to the contract and the check, please, somebody explain this to me, okay? And please explain to me how the township manager may or may not have been involved and what happened during that process.
Well, I think what we want to know is just, you asked it several times, all right? And were you guys directed, the storyline that has been spread, which isn't true? Were you guys directed? Was a decision made? No. The check, the township wrote the check because the assumption was that if it's going to be in George Park, then Lingelstown Fire won't sign it. So we need to reserve the fireworks. We need to reserve the fireworks company for that day somewhere. So we needed to reserve them. And so that's why the township wrote the check.
That's exactly why, sir. Yes.
Okay. All right.
But also to the point of the comment, and this is not directed at the previous commenter specifically, but in general terms, it seems to be the public perception that there was this last-minute decision made by the township manager to change this venue without any regard to any other organization. Let me ask the question again to the departments involved. At what point was the Lingelstown Fire Company brought into the planning process and made part of those conversations?
On November 12th, we contacted them, which was our first meeting that we held as a staff to discuss what are the options of hosting at George versus Coons Park. November 13th, they had their executive meeting to discuss at Lingelstown Fire Company. November 14th, Sean Harp, the fire chief, contacted me and stated that if this were to move, we probably would not be involved. And I, at that time, said there is no decision made. We are planning a meeting on December 10th. We encourage you to come because we are in the exploring phase at this point. December 10th came. He did not show. I am sure it might have just been the holidays, but we invited him back to January 10th. I accidentally had the wrong date. I met with him, Michelle, the public engagement specialist, and said, we encourage you to come. The meeting is actually January 14th. Mr. DeSanto came, expressed his concerns of closing or not hosting it at Coons Park, said his recommendation was to close the park for 4 days and not allow any viewers. I went to Brad on my one-on-one meeting and said, how should we proceed with this regarding closing the park as a recommendation or putting our recommendations together? He said this event is inevitably a viewer event. We need to recommend how we are going to encourage the public to still be in attendance there. So at that point, on January 28th, Director Kishiba and I both submitted a proposal recommendation. So that's how we got to having it presented to you before February 5th for your meeting to review, to have the initial discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I add just one thing?
Yeah.
Everyone who's spoken, from the experts to the public, all of their statements were fair and accurate. I don't dispute any of them. What I do dispute is that somehow our manager acted in an inappropriate way. I want to say this. I am not King Solomon. I don't know how to split the baby, okay? Neither do any of you. And our manager was in one of those circumstances. He was being told by public safety, this is a real issue, we need to consider this. The manager did not know what the Board of Supervisors would decide. In trying to understand this splitting the baby of what's going to happen with these fireworks, he took steps to make certain that we locked in the availability of the fireworks and the people who were going to explode them. Okay, that's what he did. In checking the contract, he found out that there was no specific cancellation clause that gave our side of the equation an opportunity to cancel the fireworks. In other words, if we decided to cancel for whatever reason, we may not get our money back. Now, I know that the fire company has some emails and some assurances and some phone conversations that if we needed to to cancel, that the fireworks company would let us do that. But a contract is a lot better than an email and a conversation. So what I'm saying is that I've heard a lot of people criticize Mr. Gutschall about what he did. And I freely admit it may have been handled clumsily and maybe the communications weren't the best. But he was motivated, in my opinion, my evaluation, he was motivated by the best intentions, and all he was trying to do was make certain that the Board of Supervisors would have an ability to make a decision that would lead us to go to either one of two locations and still have fireworks. So from one man's opinion, I object to the fact that we're dumping a lot of criticism on our manager when he was in that situation of trying to please public safety and trying to please the public and not knowing what the Board of Supervisors would decide. So what I'm saying is, I don't dispute anything that anybody said. I have a great deal of respect for Director Kishiba. I know that he only has public safety in mind, but the decision will be made by the board. And I don't want to hear Mr. Gutschall get all of this, what I consider to be inappropriate criticism. Thank you.
Any other comments?
One last thing, I just want to point out, the check was only cut in January when it normally is cut in November, but that was through communication with Lingelstown Fire Company that we notified them at that time. We're going to move forward with the first half of the deposit just to ensure, since you guys had stated that you may not want to be involved. However, we also have asked several times that we encourage Lingelstown Fire to be involved in the change if we were to go that route. So they were notified prior to us requesting the check for the Board of Supervisors to sign as well. We did not just go cut a check without notifying them.
All right, well, we're all on the same team. The people watching assume that police, fire, Parks and Rec, the board, the manager, that we're all on the same team, that we're not adversaries. So I'd like to just keep that in mind. You can hear the humans behind these job titles now. They have the best interest in mind. We can still debate these decisions that have to be made, and you have every right to have an opinion about them. The dehumanizing aspect of this sometimes can get a little out of hand, but we're all on the same side, and I welcome any other public opinion. Mr. DeSanto.
Good evening, board, members of the public that came out tonight. I'm just up here tonight. Obviously, I've been staying in the back for all the rest of the conversations here. There is some. I agree with what your statements are. You know, we are working together. our company is trying to work very well with the public safety director and his staff and team. I just wanted to make it clear that, obviously after what we presented last week, if the board had any questions on the packet that we submitted and the letters of support and recommendation from the other participating fire company, I'm happy to answer that. I'm here to do so. Or if during your discussion that, to get to a decision point, obviously you guys can reach out to us at any point via email or phone calls, and we will do our best to not only analyze this and work with the public safety director wherever you guys decide to be, but like I said last meeting, this how we got to here. Expected to hear different sides, which is normal, but we still greatly differ on how this was handled, and we do take the stance that it was a Linglestown event. Linglestown Fire Company event. Right. We hosted it, and like I said, and I'm not saying this in any stretch as like a threat to participation, but we will not, our contribution, financial contribution, will not go with it to George. So
we understand that, and as soon as we have received comment tonight and from you prior and other correspondence, and it's my intention when you're done is to get a feel for the board if we want to pursue a move or just keep it the way it is.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll bring that to the board members now unless we got some more comments.
I just wanted to add, along with the safety of one way and one way out, I don't know how many of you've gone to fireworks with small children that are in a confined area, but the traffic in that area would be a nightmare, having that many people in one tiny area with the only access road being Nye Road. Linglestown Road has 4 roads that border the park, and each of those roads have multiple access points to enter into. So it actually disperses very quickly after the event because there are 360 degrees of direction to go. You're not sitting in traffic waiting on one exit and one road only that gets you to that park. So public safety being in a secured area, in an area where you can't get in and out, traffic being in an area where you can't get in and out should be considered as well.
Okay, thank you. Board members, since this went public, which was probably the same time we learned about it, we've been hearing from a lot of people, and the director did a very good job doing his job and bringing up the public safety elements of this. Personally, I think it's one of those things where the overwhelming opposition, community opposition, has to weigh heavily. We don't generally put matters of public safety up for a vote or take a poll or anything like that, and I guess you probably don't want us doing that. We make a lot of decisions, and frankly, the police and fire make a lot of decisions on their own, which within their legal rights, to do things to keep us safe. I think the amount of, well, I guess my first thing is Director Kashiba recommended this move, but also assured us they'll do everything they can to maintain public safety at Coons, and whatever that requires, and they know they'll have the township support for that. So sitting here now, I am inclined to keep it in Coons, and I want to hear, to see if a majority of the board has an opinion or if you want to hear more.
I concur with you.
Ms. Thompson was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As we discussed in executive session before we started the board meeting, we don't have to make a decision tonight. We've got the fireworks vendor on hold by having that signed contract. We can wait, and that's what I would prefer to do, to have some more discussion on the issue, perhaps hear some more from other members of the public, and go from there. I'm not inclined to rush into this decision, given that we have more time. I want to take the additional time before we make a decision. That's my position.
Okay, gentlemen?
I mean, you're looking at me?
Yeah, I'm looking
Okay.
at you.
I didn't know if you were looking at Brad.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I mean, I'd be okay with taking some more time. You know, I don't feel that it needs to move from Coons, but but I think that it's worth, taking some more consideration.
I mean, I'll
into the-
take more time if you're actually open-minded and you actually think you might vote to move it.
I would like to maybe hear some more, about I'd like to take a little bit more time. I mean, I was sick last week, so I
You're
came
playing
on,
catch-up.
You're
playing catch-up.
and I was not inclined when I watched the video to make any changes. But, I will say, I do agree with public safety, and I think, I'm fine with taking, a little bit more time to try and digest that. I think that I need some more time
Mr.
to digest it
McCormick?
as well.
I concur with your suggestion to keep it at Coons Park, and I don't know that my vote or my inclination would change with any additional information.
Okay, well, we're split, so two of the members want to hear from some more information, so I think that's what we should do then, is take some more information, and obviously we take what the directors of public safety and Parks and Rec say very seriously, as we do what the residents say. If they truly are keeping an open mind and still are open to moving it, then we'll give it more time. I told you my opinion. And we will study it, take it up again, talk about it right here.
May I make a clarifying statement?
Yes, sir.
Just in rebuttal, because it seems that the primary point of contention would be that of the minors potentially getting misdemeanors as being the primary safety issue. I guess being privy to what law enforcement and first responders have to deal with, it is much more a matter of recognizing that it's the accessibility and the ability to control the venue that extends far beyond some use there getting into fights that way. There's a lot much more of a coordination that goes, especially between different agencies that I've been privy to, working with the Capital City Police and seeing how different functions have occurred with the presence coming into town. So I think it should be of pinnacle importance not to just follow tradition, but to recognize that these are changing times that are becoming more violent, and to be able to have a venue that allows for a more controlled situation should be carefully considered.
Thank you, sir. So board, do we put this on as you walk up, let me just ask these guys, do we pick when we want to put this on the agenda, or?
I do think there needs to be a time limit so that the community, the fire company, the public safety, et cetera, can all flesh out their plans for this event.
Do you have an opinion?
I did email all the members last night, and I didn't hear back from anybody, so I don't know if anything is going on with your email.
Email me?
I have an email from the website.
Yeah, what's your name? I'm sure I got it. I'm sure I got it. Yes, well, I knew we were talking about today. That's why I didn't get back to you. Yeah.
I just want to say, when you're putting it to the public, I just want to make sure that you're getting my emails,
I got-
public's emails, and they're being.
Yes. Oh, yes, we got your emails, and so,
There are two separate pages on the website. One is a staff directory that still has Norm Zumis's name on it and his email. The other is the Board of Supervisors that has my name and email. I did not get an email from you, but I would appreciate it if you'd send it to me.
all right.
Can we
So
do it-
board, just think about when you want to do this again, and we'll let this gentleman,
Just a small question.
give me your name, sir.
Mike Kirchner, I live on Jacobs Avenue, a few blocks away from Coons Park. How much has the event grown in the past few years, and how much do you expect it to grow in the coming years? Because that seems to be the issue, is the density of the crowd. Is that the safety concern?
We have been tasked to make our events larger to attract more of the community. So I definitely feel that it has increased. To say a specific number of thousands, I don't have that accurate number, but we are seeing a trend, and I know that was a conversation last week with the food trucks coming, we've been asked to make it an event for the community to have. So, yes, we are trying to,
What's the largest component?
for those 4 hours,
People coming from outside the area.
certainly coming because it's a regional event.
The roads are just packed there,
Correct,
the square.
correct.
Okay. And this is a stupid question that I shouldn't ask. And my wife will say, why'd you ask it? But would it be, is it completely out of the question to try or think about putting it on July 4th so that Lower Paxton has its and Harrisburg has its, and maybe it controls the crowds more? Or are they, or is it conflicting fireworks at that time? Or
I'm going to
That's-
refer to Director Kashiba on
I've
that
got you
one
all in the
because I do
room, I
believe
might
that
as well.
was discussed as well.
So yes, sir, that was discussed as a possibility. Obviously, it can't occur this year because the contract wouldn't be for that particular day. I will share with you that because of the events that occurred on July 4th, and I don't know where that's coming from, but because of the events that occurred in the city on July 4th, the city has reassured me that the mobile field force and all the partner agencies surrounding the city are going to be requested to send personnel to.
I knew there was
the
a
city.
reason. Okay, so a lot of the support would be tied up in
The
Harrisburg.
shifting of resources, yes, sir. We're pulling from their resources, our partners on July 3rd. They're going to be pulling from us.
Okay.
And we'll also be pulling from the state police for both of those events.
There's a lot of mutual aid that goes on. All right. Well, thank you for indulging me. Board, when are we bringing this up again?
Can we put it on the agenda for next week? Would you feel comfortable with Tuesday, the 18th?
I guess, yeah,
Next meeting?
yeah.
Next meeting. All right, we'll put it on the agenda next meeting. Okay, announcements. I should have announced this earlier. Obviously, when we talked about the board resignation, we will be advertising for applications. Place illegal advertising for that. Our next meeting is a business meeting.
Announcement.
Go ahead, announcements. Sorry.
Okay, so for those of you all that are from Lingelstown Village, I suggest that you talk to your fellow neighbors and get them to come out to the next meeting so that they can express their feelings about the fireworks and what was discussed here tonight.
Okay. All right, then. Our next board meeting is a business meeting, Tuesday, February 18th at 7 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.